33, so welcome back, Nick.
Nice to be here. I'll take the item as read. The only comment I wanted to make was around the second part of the resolution, which talks about the approval of unbudgeted expenditure up to 100,000. I'm waiting on a final invoice from one of the commissioners, but my anticipation is that that's going to be much closer to 60,000.
That was my only concern to Nick, is that we already did some unbudgeted beforehand, and we realised that if it went to environment court and stuff like that, that we want to beef it up. So that's the news. Councillor Henderson?
I'd just like to move the resolution.
Second by Councillor Ferret. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Williams?
I wanted the opportunity to speak against the resolution.
You've got the opportunity to speak, Councillor Williams?
The only part that I support the resolution except for the KTHD area. The reason I don't support the Commissioner's recommendations there is because over 60 businesses already in that zone exists, which do not necessarily comply with the plan changes 28 to 33. Specifically, they submitted on plan change 30. The Commissioners listened to the smaller operators, the smaller office holders in that area, and they did increase the numbers of employees from 2 to 5, and the floor area allowed under the plan change from 50 square metres to 100 square metres, which I think is totally absurd, because most of the buildings in that area are far more than 100 square metres. Those converted houses, a lot of them would be 200 square metres, so they still won't comply. The Commissioners came out loud and clear against larger offices with larger staff numbers. The people, and I've read all the submissions, the people that were heard by the Commissioners were in those areas for specific reasons. They wanted access at ground level. They were unable to find larger space that was suitable in the CBD. That's why they moved into the area in the first place. And I see this, the Commissioners' reasoning here certainly does not, as I say, take into consideration the submissions at all. I support the ideology that there shouldn't be further businesses allowed to develop new office space. Then on the same token, I stood, and I know many of my fellow councillors stood, on the pretext of economic growth, and this is this finding with regards to the KTHD area severely limits those businesses in order to flourish in the future and grow. It actually limits growth for those businesses. Another thing that I found very odd was that they're limiting offices in their working hours from 8 AM to 6 PM in that area, which also I think is very limiting for many businesses work after hours, so they won't be complying. I think it's very unfair, and I've spoken to Ms McLeod, and she's confirmed with our solicitor that it's actually irrelevant at this stage, but I should tell councillors that the government is relooking at the RMA with regards to changes in regulations that councils may impose with regards to severely inhibiting individual property rights. And I consider that the Hearings Commission's finding with regards to the KTH area is severely inhibiting individual property rights and those business rights. So for that reason, I'm voting for the resolution with the exclusion of the KTHD area.
Okay, I'll probably jump the gun a bit too early to vote early, so is anyone else that wants to speak against the motion?
I'll echo what Nicholas said. It's causing a lot of hardship to a lot of people that have already moved in that area.
I just submitted one key effect too, and that is that despite the advice these councillors were given, for any existing businesses within that KTH area that do comply with the use of spiritual health, spiritual, medical or residential, should they wish to change the use, they are subject to resource consent, and we were advised that they would be subject under the present plan. But under the present plan they would comply, whereas under the proposed plan change 30, they would not comply, and they would be running the risk, which would be in their view a very serious risk of any citizen franchise neighbour or any person from anywhere actually challenging that resource consent application. So that's a very that limits their the value, severely limits the value and the target market of potential buyers should those property owners wish to sell.
Any other speakers against the motion?
Yeah, this concerned me too in respect of just what Nicholas covered. Can I just ask that in the case of the existing businesses, they would have existing use rights until they wanted to change something, and then they go through the resource process, which severely hamstrings them. And I know that a couple of businesses who have borrowings against their businesses can be severely hamstrung.
Yeah.
Did you want to reply to that?
I was just going to clarify that existing operations have existing use rights underneath the Resource Management Act, so they can continue as is, as long as the effects of their operations do not change significantly.
So that would apply to if they sell, that can continue as is?
Correct.
But obviously if you're an education or a church, you would have a very limited target market, whereas if you're an office, you know, I'm not saying that churches may be looking at changing into office space, but certainly with educational or medical facilities they would be very appropriately used for office space. But I just had one further comment to make, and that is I was really disappointed that we didn't have a local hearings commissioner who had local knowledge and who was a local person. We did have a hearings commissioner that had local knowledge, but not a local person who had understanding of local issues. And secondly, I was really disappointed that those hearings took place during the long-term plan when none of us as councillors were able to attend.
Okay, anyone else to speak against the motion? If not, is there anyone who wants to speak for the motion? Okay, I will now pass that the motion that was moved by Councillor Henderson and seconded by Councillor Kirk. All those in favour of part 1 and 2 and the second part of the suggested resolution. Amendment for 60,000. Those ayes. Councillor Kirk, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Downard, Councillor Hickling, Councillor Truman. Those against. Councillor Kipper, Councillor Williams and Councillor Craig. Motion is moved.